In this video, I'm going to show you some things you can do when your parents who are aging and your kids who are still at home all want and need your attention at the same time. You probably want to run away from them all sometimes. When this happens, you're going to need to prioritize, but there's no manual on how to prioritize that works for everything. It obviously depends on your situation and also the situation of the generation above you and the one below you. So let's look at some of the most common scenarios. To begin with, sometimes there's just an emergency situation that needs to be dealt with. Babies always need someone to watch them. There are some important moments in a child's life, and there are some significant moments in aging parents' lives. And all these situations are going to be different. Sometimes it's your kids who are going to take the priority. When my dad had his second surgery in early 2018 and my mom had already declined quite a bit with her dementia, there was a complication in the surgery and he had to stay in the hospital longer. It was important for me to be home for my youngest daughter's 12th birthday, so I organized support for my parents and I went home with a heavy heart to be leaving my parents in such a difficult situation. But that is the nature of prioritizing. Hit the like button if you too have faced a difficult prioritizing situation where you prioritize one of your kids, so that I know that this situation is speaking to you. Sometimes prioritizing the generations is a daily concern. A past client of mine had lost her mom a few years back, and she had taken over a lot of what her mom did in her parents' house. This client had young children at the time, and so it was a constant balancing act between her work, her kids, her family life, and her dad. Let me know in the comments if you're facing something like this so I can give you some support. Sometimes it's something with your aging parents that takes the priority. A bit later in 2018, I got a call from my dad who wanted to tell me that he was going back in for another surgery the next day. It was the week before Easter and the surgeon was about to go away on vacation for 2 weeks. My parents lived a 4-hour drive from me and I still had 2 kids at home who were still in school. And of course I had my own commitments, as I'm sure you do too. But I really wanted to see my dad before he went into that surgery. It was his 5th surgery under general anesthesia and a hair over 3 months, and honestly I was getting a little bit superstitious. This time I asked if I could talk to the surgeon. I wanted to ask him if he could possibly delay the surgery by 24 hours. He thought about it and he said yes. So that gave me 4 or 5 hours to organize my kids and myself so that I could get there in time to spend a few hours with my parents before my dad had to go back into surgery. So hit the like button if you've been through an urgent reorganization like the one I just described, so that I get a sense of what you're going through and I keep giving you meaningful content. Sometimes an adult child gets the priority. December 15th, 2018, after a full year of decline of both my parents, I went on a trip far away from where I lived to spend Christmas with my oldest daughter, while the rest of the family was far away in another direction. Otherwise, she and I would have spent Christmas alone, and I wanted to visit her where she was spending 2 years anyway. A week after I left, my mom actually choked to death. Among the difficulties of this situation was the fact that for a moment I thought that maybe I shouldn't have gone, that I should have stayed. But that is faulty thinking. It's important that you take time to do things that are meaningful for you. It's impossible to prevent every imaginable unfortunate event anyway. You know it, and yet I've seen it in many of my clients that they're putting so much pressure on themselves to try to do just that. That's one of the things we could discuss if you wanted to join my community of support, your support within your reach. The link is in the description. It doesn't always have to be you. I sing in a choir, and a Friday night in the spring of 2018, we were singing Mozart's Requiem, which might seem a bit ominous. Things were quite tense at my parents' house. My mom had gotten violent with a helper who was staying with them. It was really bad. And literally on my way to singing in this concert, I remembered the pharmacist from my parents' town who had told me that if I ever needed anything to call them, they'd given me their cell phone number. I definitely needed something, so I called them and they told me they would go over to my parents' house and they would keep me posted. So I was able to honor my commitment to my choir. I'd love it if you could put a yes in the comments if you too would have called someone in that kind of situation, and a no if you wouldn't have, just for me to get a sense. Really, no judgment, I assure you. So what you need to do to prioritize in the sandwich generation is to really be attentive to the needs of the generations around you and also your own needs. And sometimes there might be a bad outcome anyway, but you know what? There's no insurance against bad outcomes. Even if you really do everything right with the generations, there may still be some crises. But your life in the sandwich generation will be easier if you manage the generations before a crisis hits, so that you can be more at peace. And that's why in the next video, I'm going to talk about how to be okay in the sandwich generation. So how to manage the different generations to minimize the number of crises that you have to face. So click on the image and I'll see you there.